February 11, 2022, 11:45 p.m. Two young men are driving through the quiet streets of Leicester, believing they're heading to a meeting that will finally resolve a difficult situation. Saqib Hussain, 21, is behind the wheel of his silver Skoda, with his best friend Hashim Ijazuddin, also 21, in the passenger seat. Neither of them knows that they're driving straight into a trap that has been months in the making, orchestrated by a TikTok star who has convinced herself that murder is the only solution to her family's problems. The meeting location had been carefully chosen by Mahek Bukhari. Tesco car park in Hamilton, Leicester, a public space that would seem safe and neutral to her victims, but also isolated enough at night for what she really had planned. As Saqib and Hashim pull into the parking lot at exactly 11:52 p.m., they can see several cars already waiting, more than they expected for what was supposed to be a simple negotiation. What happened next was captured in chilling detail by the victims' own phones, creating a digital record that would become crucial evidence in the murder trial. At 11:54 p.m., Saqib sent a voice message to a friend, his voice already tense with concern. "There's a lot of them here, more than we expected. Something doesn't feel right, but we're going to try to sort this out." It was a message that would later be played in court, showing the exact moment when two innocent young men realized they might be in danger. The confrontation began almost immediately. Instead of the reasonable negotiation that had been promised, Mahek and her accomplices surrounded the victim's car, shouting demands and threats. The same woman who had built her brand on family values and positive content was now screaming at two young men who had simply responded to what they thought was a genuine attempt to resolve their dispute. The air filled with aggressive voices, banging on windows, and attempts to force the car doors open. The digital evidence recovered from the scene reveals the exact moment when intimidation became attempted murder. At 11:57 p.m., Hashim managed to send a desperate message to his brother. "They're trying to get us out of the car. There's too many of them. We're going to try to drive away." It was the last message he would ever send, a final plea for help that arrived too late to save either young man. What Saqib and Hashim didn't know was that Mahek had planned for the possibility that they might try to escape. She had positioned accomplices in multiple vehicles around the car park, creating what prosecutors would later describe as a killing zone designed to prevent any escape. When Saqib started his engine and tried to drive away from the confrontation, he found his path blocked by cars that had been strategically positioned to trap them. The desperation in Saqib's voice was captured in a voice message he sent at 11:58 p.m. as he attempted to maneuver around the blocking vehicles. "They've trapped us in. They're not letting us leave. We're going to have to ram through." The message reveals a young man who had realized that his life was in immediate danger and that the only way to survive was to fight his way out of the trap that had been set for him. The chase began at exactly midnight. Saqib made a desperate decision to ram through the blockade and escape onto the main road. The silver Skoda burst through the trap, scraping against blocking vehicles as it fought its way to freedom, but Mahek and her accomplices immediately gave chase in two separate vehicles. What followed was a high-speed pursuit through the streets of Leicester that would reach speeds of over 100 miles per hour. The same young woman who had spent years creating content about family love and traditional values was now actively participating in a chase designed to kill two innocent men whose only crime was knowing about her mother's affair. The pursuit involved 8 people in total, all coordinating their efforts to force the victim's car off the road using their vehicles as weapons. The most chilling evidence from this period comes from the 999 call that Saqib made while driving for his life. At 12:03 a.m., with cars ramming him from behind and forcing him toward the edge of the carriageway, Saqib called emergency services in a desperate attempt to get help. The call, which lasted 4 minutes and 37 seconds, captures the final moments of a young man who realized he was about to die. "They're trying to kill us," Saqib told the emergency operator, his voice breaking with terror as he struggled to maintain control of his car while being rammed from behind. "They're ramming us off the road. Please help us. We're on the A46 heading toward the M1. They're going to kill us. Please, you have to help us." The desperation in his voice was heartbreaking, a young man pleading for his life while his attackers continued their relentless pursuit. The emergency operator, trained to handle crisis calls, tried to keep Saqib calm while dispatching police to intercept the chase. "Stay on the line with me," she told him. "I've got police units heading to your location. Can you tell me what kind of vehicles are chasing you?" But even as she spoke, the sound of metal hitting metal could be heard through the phone as the attackers continued ramming the victim's car. Saqib's responses became increasingly frantic as the chase continued. "They're in a white car and a dark car. They keep hitting us from behind. We can't get away from them. They're going to kill us." The raw terror in his voice was something that would haunt everyone who heard it, a reminder of the human cost of Mahek's obsession with protecting her online image. But Mahek and her accomplices were relentless, using their vehicles as weapons to force the victim's car off the road. Phone records show that she was in constant communication with her accomplices throughout the chase, directing their movements and coordinating their attacks on the victim's vehicle. The same coordination skills that had made her successful on TikTok were now being used to orchestrate murder in real time. At 12:06 a.m., the chase reached a critical point as the vehicles approached a sharp bend in the A46. Saqib, still on the phone with emergency services, could be heard struggling to maintain control as his car was rammed repeatedly from behind. "They're pushing us off the road," he screamed into the phone. "We're going too fast. I can't control the car anymore." The emergency operator continued trying to help, dispatching additional units and attempting to guide Saqib to safety. But the attackers were determined to prevent any escape. At speeds approaching 100 miles per hour, they continued ramming the victim's car, pushing it toward the edge of the carriageway where the road curved sharply. At 12:08 a.m., the chase reached its horrific conclusion. Forced off the A46 at over 90 miles per hour, Saqib lost control of his Skoda as it left the carriageway and crashed into a large oak tree. The impact was so severe that the car immediately burst into flames, trapping both young men inside. The 9999 call was still connected, capturing the sound of the crash and the flames that would claim 2 innocent lives. "Hello? Hello? Are you there?" The emergency operator called into the phone, hearing only the sound of crackling flames and escaping steam. The line remained open for another 3 minutes, recording the final moments of 2 young men whose only mistake was trusting that a meeting arranged through social media would be conducted in good faith. Emergency services arrived within 6 minutes of the crash, but it was too late. The fire had consumed the vehicle so completely that both Saqib Hussein and Hashim Ijazuddin were pronounced dead at the scene. Their bodies were so badly burned that identification required dental records, adding another layer of tragedy to an already devastating situation. But even in death, Saqib and Hashim would have the last word. Their phones, somehow surviving the crash and fire, contained a complete digital record of everything that had happened. The voice messages, the location data, the call logs, and the 4-minute emergency call provided investigators with an unprecedented view into a murder that the perpetrators thought they had planned perfectly. Within hours of the crash, Mahek Bukhari was already executing the alibi plan she had prepared. She posted on social media, sharing photos and videos designed to place her far from the scene. She even went live on TikTok the next morning, chatting with followers about fashion and lifestyle content as if nothing had happened. The disconnect between her online persona and the reality of what she had done was staggering. But investigators were already beginning to piece together what had really happened. The victims' phones provided GPS data showing the exact route of the chase. Cell tower records revealed which phones had been in the area at the time of the murder. Most damning of all, the coordination messages between Mahek and her accomplices created a digital trail that led directly to their door. The forensic analysis revealed paint transfers on the victim's car matching the attacker's vehicles. Tire marks on the road showed the pattern of ramming that had forced the Skoda off the carriageway. Even the angle of impact suggested deliberate force rather than accidental loss of control. As news of the crash spread, Mahek continued her charade of innocence, sharing articles about the tragic accident and posting condolences. But behind the facade, recovered voice messages showed her expressing satisfaction that their problem had been solved and discussing how to maintain their alibis. Within 3 weeks, Mahek Bukhari and 7 accomplices were arrested and charged with murder. The same social media platforms that had made her famous became the source of evidence that would convict her. 2 young men with their whole lives ahead of them had been murdered to protect a TikTok star's online reputation, killed by someone who valued her social media image more than human life itself. In our final episode, we'll explore how this comprehensive digital evidence led to one of the most significant murder convictions in recent UK history, and examine what this landmark case means for the future of social media crime and digital accountability. We'll see how justice was ultimately served through the same technology that had enabled the crime, bringing closure to a case that shocked the nation and changed how we think about the deadly consequences of social media obsession.